The night he chose wrong. The hospital called at 2:47 in the morning. By the time Claire answered, her hands were already shaking, because she had been calling her husband, Daniel, for 3 hours, and he had not picked up once. Not once. Their son, Ethan, was 7 years old and burning with a fever that the doctors at St. Joseph's Medical Center in Charlotte were calling critical. A rare bacterial infection had reached his bloodstream. Every minute mattered. The doctors needed consent for emergency surgery. They needed both parents. They needed Daniel. But Daniel was 40 minutes away, in a hotel room with a woman named Melissa, his assistant of 2 years, sleeping peacefully while his son fought for his life. Claire was 32, quiet in the way that deep rivers are quiet. She had given Daniel everything: 8 years of marriage, a son, a home full of warmth and small traditions. She baked on Sunday mornings. She kept his mother's birthday on the calendar. She never asked for more than he offered. Her name was Claire Whitmore, and she had loved Daniel with the kind of love that does not announce itself, steady, patient, unconditional. Her father was a different story. Gerald Whitmore was 61 years old, a self-made man who had built a commercial real estate empire across 3 states from nothing but ambition and a refusal to lose. He had silver hair, sharp eyes, and the kind of silence that made people in boardrooms check their phones nervously. He adored Claire. He tolerated Daniel. When Gerald received his daughter's call at 3 a.m., her voice barely above a whisper, saying, "Dad, they can't find him, and Ethan might not make it," something in him went very, very still. He drove to the hospital himself. He signed what needed to be signed. He held Claire's hand in the corridor while surgeons worked on his 7-year-old grandson. And he said nothing about Daniel. Not yet. Daniel arrived at 5:18 a.m., disheveled, his excuses already assembled. Phone was on silent. Work emergency. I came as fast as I could. Gerald looked at him once. Just once. Then he walked away. The doctor came out at 5:43 a.m. He was not smiling. "We did everything we could," he said quietly. "I'm so sorry. We lost him at 5:41. The corridor went silent in a way that no silence ever should. Claire made a sound that was not crying. It was something deeper than crying, something that came from a place inside a mother that only exists when the worst thing that can never happen suddenly has. She folded to the floor. Gerald caught her before she hit the ground, his arms wrapped around her, his face pressed into her hair, his own body shaking for the first time in 30 years. Daniel stood in the doorway, still holding the flowers from the hospital gift shop. Ethan was buried on a Friday, beneath an oak tree in Elmwood Cemetery. The sky was pale and gray. 70 people came. Daniel sat in the front row, his face hollow, his eyes dry in the way that guilt sometimes makes eyes dry, not because there is no grief, but because the grief has nowhere clean to go. Gerald sat beside Claire and did not look at Daniel once during the entire service. Afterward, when the guests had gone and Claire was inside with her mother, Gerald walked to his car alone. Daniel followed him. "Gerald. I need you to know, I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know how serious it was." Gerald stopped walking. He turned around very slowly. "She called you 22 times, Gerald said." His voice was low and completely level. 22 times in 3 hours. While our boy was dying. You were 40 minutes away. "I know," Daniel whispered. "I know." "No," Gerald said. "You don't. Because if you knew, truly knew, you wouldn't be standing here asking me for understanding. You would understand that there is nothing left here for you." He got in his car and drove away. In the weeks that followed, Gerald moved quietly. He did not rage. He simply began to dismantle. Daniel worked as vice president of development at Whitmore Commercial Properties, a position Gerald had given him 6 years ago as a wedding gift to his daughter. Within 30 days, Gerald restructured the division. Daniel's role was quietly eliminated. His access was revoked. His company car was collected on a Tuesday afternoon without warning or ceremony. Then Gerald called in favors. Real estate in Charlotte runs on relationships, and Gerald had spent 30 years building the deepest ones. One by one, doors that Daniel had taken for granted began to close. Meetings were cancelled. Investors became unavailable. The private project Daniel had been developing independently, the one he had quietly used company resources to fund, was exposed in a certified letter to the state licensing board. Daniel came to the house one evening, furious, demanding answers. Gerald met him on the front porch. Calm. Measured. A glass of bourbon in his hand. "You're destroying my life," Daniel said. "No," Gerald replied quietly. "You destroyed your life the night you turned your phone face down. I am simply making sure you feel every consequence of that choice. The way my daughter feels it. Every single morning when she walks past a bedroom with dinosaur drawings on the walls." Daniel had no answer for that. There is no answer for that. Claire filed for divorce in November. She did not do it out of anger. She did it because there was nothing left to save. Grief had burned away everything that might have been rebuilt, and what remained was only the truth, standing alone in the ash. On a quiet Sunday morning in December, Gerald drove Claire to Elmwood Cemetery. They brought sunflowers, Ethan's favorite. They sat beside the small headstone together for a long time without speaking. Finally Claire said, "I keep thinking that if someone had reached him in time, if he had just answered." "Don't," Gerald said gently. "That road has no end, sweetheart." She leaned her head against her father's shoulder. He put his arm around her. The oak tree above them was bare and still. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. "I know," he said. "But you are not doing it alone. You were never doing it alone. Some absences cannot be forgiven. Some phones should never be left face down. And some losses carve themselves so permanently into a family that no amount of flowers, excuses, or regret can ever fill the shape of what was lost." Ethan Whitmore. 7 years old. Loved completely by those who were present, and failed by the one who should have been.